The class tonight is on the liver. King liver. The liver is the king of all organs. We're going to talk in pretty good detail about the liver and all its functions, signs to look for if you have potential liver problems. And at the end, I'm going to give you my protocol for a liver cleanse, for healing the liver. The whole series is called The Amazing Human Body. And every Thursday night, we're going to talk about a different body part. Okay? So there's already, this month is scheduled, but I think I'm going to just go ahead and continue it into April and May because, well, there's lots of body parts and there's lots of things we can talk about. So we're just going to just keep that right on going. So tonight, liver. You got to learn how to love your liver. It's a pretty cool picture. I like that. So
Is it really that big?
it's the largest organ in your body.
Really?
If you don't count your skin. Okay. So you're not really going to be able to follow along in your handout here, but most of this information is on the handout. So first thing is some fascinating facts about the liver.
I need a handout.
Oh. Here, young lady. I think this one's pretty obvious. You cannot live without your liver. There are some glands that you can live without. They can take your gallbladder out. They can take your thyroid out. They can take a kidney out. You can't live without your liver. It is the largest organ in the body. This is really cool. If you remove surgically 2/3 of your liver, it will completely grow back and regenerate to its original size within 3 months. It's the only organ that's able to do that. It is hands down the most resilient organ in the entire body, but it's also the most abused and overworked because, as we'll find out later, it processes everything that comes into the body. So it is a major, major, major workhorse. But the good news is if you've been quote-unquote diagnosed with any type of a liver issue, regardless of what it is, if it's a hepatitis or a cirrhosis or whatever, the liver can and will heal. It wants to heal. But we're going to learn what you have to do that. And as always, I always say that if you have any questions, raise your hand. We'll take care of them right away. The liver filters your entire blood supply every 3.5 minutes. So all the blood in your entire body continually cycles through your liver every 3.5 minutes. The liver is like a sponge. It absorbs that blood and filters it. You don't feel your liver working. Yet, just what they found so far, it's known to do over 500 different functions. And that's just what we've discovered so far. We'll go over all 500 tonight. Yeah, there'll be a test at the end. It is your key protector. It is one thing we found in natural health is that if you have any kind of a chronic illness that you're not able to overcome, we're talking cancers and things like that, there's a very good chance your liver isn't functioning. Because if your liver was functioning properly, you most likely would not get a severe chronic illness. Did you have a question?
Does that apply to type 2 diabetes also?
Absolutely. Yeah, because the liver is one of the organs, one of the main organs in charge of sugars in the body and releasing excess sugars. So we're going to go over some basic liver functions. Wish I had a little clicker I could just do, but I don't. The liver is known to perform over 500 different functions. So picture a sponge, okay, to kind of get a visual of this. Picture the liver like a sponge. All the blood that comes into the liver absorbs it, okay? And then what it does with it, it processes that blood. When I say processes it, it metabolizes things. It metabolizes hormones. It metabolizes fats and proteins and sugars and vitamins and minerals. A lot of them it stores in the liver for when you need it. For example, when you're run down and you're tired, it'll shoot some extra sugar into your bloodstream. It stores vitamin B12, for example. We hear about vegetarians and raw vegans, how they don't get enough B12 because they don't eat meat. Well, your liver actually stores, they say, about 7 years worth of vitamin B12. So it's kind of a backup mechanism as well. So as I said, the liver metabolizes hormones, fats, sugars, proteins, vitamins, and minerals, and it also stores them for future use. The flip side of that, of this, the sponge effect absorbing all this blood, is it has to filter all that blood. So there's all kinds of contaminants that are entering our body at all times, whether it's from just the food we eat, even if it's good food, the liver has to filter it. Vitamins, minerals, fats, everything has to be filtered by the liver. That's why what you eat, which we'll get into more detail later, is so critically important, especially if you want to have a healthy liver, because even the good food you eat has to be filtered through the liver, let alone the 70,000 chemicals that are in our food supply, let alone the antibiotics and growth hormones that are in our meat and dairy products, let alone cigarette smoke and alcohol that we drink. On and on and on and on. Herbicides and pesticides from inorganic fruits and vegetables. So the liver has to filter all of that. And it stores a lot of those toxins because it just gets overworked and it can't filter it all. Another very critical, important function of the liver is it produces bile. Bile is what your body uses to break down fats more than anything. Excess bile is stored in the gallbladder. We're going to talk about a little bit about the gallbladder tonight, since I don't have a gallbladder class. The best time to talk about it is with the liver because they go hand in hand. And on the second page there, I give a pretty detailed explanation of the liver duct system and the gallbladder duct system. And just to talk about that real quick, since we're talking about bile, is one of the most common surgeries performed today is gallbladder surgery. I can almost guarantee everybody here knows somebody who's had their gallbladder removed. Does anybody not know somebody that had a gallbladder removed? You don't know anyone? No, you're a rare exception.
I mean, not that I know of.
Right.
They haven't told
There
me.
probably is someone.
Okay.
Has anybody here had their gallbladder removed? Okay, Steve. It's very common. What's really important in talking about the liver is that gallbladder dysfunction does not come from fault of the gallbladder. Gallbladder dysfunction comes from fault of the liver, okay, when the liver is overworked. What happens with gallbladder stones, gallstones, is that the liver is overworked from having to process all these different foods. And some people are, prone to it. There is some heredity involved in this, but again, that's why you have to be real careful the way we eat. But when the liver's producing bile constantly, and we're eating, say, fast food, fried foods, fatty foods, lots of sugar, things like that, and it's more than the liver can process, it starts to coagulate, it starts to thicken. And when it's too thick to move out of the body, it forms into stones, because there's nowhere else for it to go. And when you think of gallstones, don't think of a rock, okay? They're actually just coagulated bile. Combination of bile and cholesterol. Basically coagulated fat. The reason I say that is because when you think of gallstones, like you think of kidney stones, you think of those sharp little stones that they say it's worse than giving birth to pass one. I don't know if anyone can vouch for that. Mm-hmm. But the gallstones, less than 5% of gallstones are actually calcified. And if you go to a doctor to get checked for gallstones, he's not going to find a stone unless it's been calcified. A stone isn't going to show up on an x-ray unless you can see visual evidence of that, and you can't see visual evidence of that unless it's a hard stone. So in other words, people have thousands and thousands of stones in their gallbladder, their liver, their bile ducts, and they never know it. And oftentimes the first symptom is screaming in pain, running to the hospital, removing your gallbladder, which is why prevention is so important. And I think I mentioned that on the second page. If you don't think you have gallstones, think again. And even if you're not sure, do a cleanse, because again, the first symptom is often surgery, because there's so many stones in there, there's nowhere else for the body to go, and it's surgery or you're done. I don't know how yours was. Do you want to share your experience at all? Or I don't want to put you on the spot.
No,
but-
I'll share, don't worry at all. So yeah, I was actually kind of lucky. My brother, 6 months before I had mine out, had his out, had been going to the doctor. This was when we were in college, so in our early 20s. Had for 3 years been having pain, severe pains, and they thought it was ulcers and everything else. Well, his liver just shut down. He turned yellow. He jaundiced. That's how they figured it out. And so, they took his out. So then a few months later, I passed some stones. And yeah, painful, very painful.
Yeah.
And so they checked, and they said there were no more in there. So like 6 months later, they checked again, and there were more stones. So that's when they...
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And have you had issues since then?
I have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, it's pretty much gone away since I cleaned up my diet.
Good.
But that, and I don't digest fats well.
Right.
Yeah.
So over 50% of people who have their gallbladder removed have serious problems for the rest of their life. Over 50%. And by the way, the doctors will say they have a 100% success rate in gallbladder surgery because 100% successful surgery to a doctor is you didn't die and there wasn't a lawsuit. That's not a joke. I mean, that's a successful surgery. So they'll claim you don't need it. They claim it's a vestigial organ, like an appendix, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. So what happens when you have your gallbladder removed is it doesn't solve the problem, because the problem was coagulating bile and cholesterol. You haven't solved the coagulating bile and cholesterol problem. You've removed the organ that's been storing that coagulated bile and cholesterol. So now what happens is it continues to form the stones. They continue to deposit in the body, in the ducts, and often they start to form in the pancreatic ducts, because that is the next organ in line. So stones start to form in the pancreas, and then a lot of people have their gallbladder removed get pancreatitis. So you got to be really careful about that. Did you have a question?
What's the definition of vestigial?
Not needed, unneeded,
Okay.
unnecessary.
Okay.
Yeah. Like your tonsils, your appendix, which we all know obviously God gave us all these things for a reason. But
Right.
As I said,
Okay.
they've now
and if you can live without it, to them it's vestigial, I guess.
It serves a purpose.
Okay.
You can get like-
The tonsils?
I think
What's that?
They've now said that the appendix serves a purpose.
Oh yeah. They admit now that the appendix serve a purpose. The tonsils are your first line of defense for your lymphatic system. So yeah, they now recognize that all those
And what
organs
is the
are needed.
purpose of what was that other one?
The appendix?
Yeah.
It actually houses a lot of beneficial bacteria. It's very protective for the intestinal tract, and it also assists in digestion as well.
Which of course, when they take the gallbladder out, they take that out. So.
Right. Yeah. Oftentimes, yeah.
Wow.
So what happens? Last thing on the gallbladder. What happens when your gallbladder is removed? Your liver's still producing bile. That's its job. So what happens? You don't have a storage container. You don't have a storage sac for the gallbladder. So you have a constant drip. You have a constant drip of bile into the intestinal tract that you can't stop. So you'll have diarrhea, IBS, things like that, because it's like a leaky faucet and you can't turn it off. So those are some of the repercussions of not having preventative maintenance done on your gallbladder. So I just highly recommend, again, we're going to go through a liver cleanse here. Just remember the liver, gallbladder, hand in hand. The gallbladder's usually not the source of the problem. The gallbladder's just a storage container. So focus on the liver, you'll heal the gallbladder at the same time. And practice prevention so that you don't have an issue like this come up, because it's very common. Any questions? Another important function, the liver produces cholesterol. Cholesterol, one of those things we're scared of. One of these false wars in modern medicine, the war on cholesterol. Okay? The body produces cholesterol every single day because it's not bad for us, because we need it, because it's super duper important. I've done classes on heart health and the function of cholesterol, but it's critically important for hormone production. It's a precursor for hormone production. You can't produce hormones without cholesterol, without good fat. You can't produce sex hormones. It's very protective of your veins and arteries. It'll increase your risk of stroke and other illnesses by reducing cholesterol levels. Very important for muscular function. People on
But you
cholesterol.
need good cholesterol as opposed to bad cholesterol.
Well, cholesterol the liver produces. There's no such thing as bad cholesterol.
Oh,
Bad cholesterol would be like bad fats if you ate fried, fatty junk food.
okay.
Okay? Your body produces cholesterol because you need cholesterol. When they say bad cholesterol, they're basically just talking about bad fats, eating fatty foods and things like that.
Oh.
And oftentimes, your cholesterol levels are high because your liver isn't functioning properly, because that's one of the functions of the liver. It's not only to produce cholesterol, but to remove excess, you can call it bad cholesterol, bad fats from the system. There is no good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. The only reason they call it that is because one cholesterol molecule brings nutrients to the cells, and one carries it away. So the one that carries it away, they call it the good, and the one that brings it to, they call it bad. It's silly. But that's the way it is. So here's a few symptoms of having a weak liver. And there's a lot more than this, but these are just some of the common ones. And one I didn't even put up there is heavy bags under the eyes. That's a clear indicator. Not always necessarily liver, sometimes kidneys, but usually something in that kidney, gallbladder, liver area if you have constant heavy bags under the eyes. Unless you only sleep an hour a night. So intolerance to greasy and spicy foods. I know a few people that they just can't do garlic. They just can't do cayenne pepper. That's not because there's a problem with garlic and cayenne pepper. There's a problem with their system. Weight gain, headaches, indigestion, chronic constipation, skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis. There's really only two reasons people get eczema and psoriasis. It's usually a problem in their intestinal tract, completely blocked colon, poisons leaking out of their intestinal tract, or the liver not functioning properly. You clean up the intestinal tract, you clean up the liver, and you'll see eczema and psoriasis go away every time.
How does it affect weight gain?
Weight gain, because the liver has to process everything, and when it stops having the ability to process it because it's overworked, it's got to store toxins in the fat cells. It's got to store them somewhere. It's got to do something with them. If it can't eliminate them, it's got to do something with it, and it's going to do something. It's going to put it somewhere that provides the least amount of damage to your body. So it's just going to start storing it. And that's kind of like the definition of disease in a nutshell. That's why if you don't cleanse, if you don't change your oil filter in your car, if you don't cleanse the toxins out of your body, eventually the toxins accumulate to the point where they start depositing in different parts of the body. Modern medicine just puts a name on it. If your body starts depositing the excess toxins in your joints, they'll call it arthritis. If the excess poisons are trapped in your muscles, they'll call it fibromyalgia. If it's in your nervous system, they'll call it multiple sclerosis. They're just putting names on the same thing. Everything's a toxicity condition. Sinus and allergy problems, again, because the liver has to filter all these things. And if it can't filter it, they're spilling back out into the bloodstream, and the body's having a reaction to it. Yellowing of the eyes or skin, otherwise known as jaundice. Itching skin, same thing. Liver can't filter it, it's spilling back out into the body, you're going to have itchy skin. Gallstones and edema or swelling. And then this is another important thing is if you have a weak liver, an overworked liver, it's going to allow waste to accumulate in the intestinal tract. And I see a lot of people that have bile backup. So in other words, their colon's clogged, the liver's producing bile, there's nowhere for that bile to be released. So the bile continues to be produced and it continues to back up. Remember, from here to here is 30 feet. 30 feet of pipe. 20 feet in your small intestines. So bile keeps being produced, keeps being dumped in your small intestines. It's got nowhere to go. So it just backs up. All that 20 feet of small intestines. It just backs up, backs up, backs up, and suddenly you're full, and then you think you're dying. Okay, so any questions so far? Because I'm going to kind of go into how to heal the liver.
The bile backup, I'm not sure I'm understanding that. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
Maybe I missed something.
Well, the liver produces bile to break down fats and things like that. And it's going to produce it every day regardless.
Right.
Because that's its job. And the gallbladder is meant to store it, the excess bile. But when we get gallstones because the liver's overworked, the gallbladder's full, it just starts to accumulate in the body. And it's even worse if you're constipated. Because if you're constipated, again, that's a pathway of elimination for the body. So it's just going to continue to accumulate. Because the body's constantly producing it every day, regardless.
Could you talk a little bit more about people who have had their gallbladders removed
Uh-huh.
and what really happens to them? Because my brother had his gallbladder removed and he's having more problems now, and I'm going like, well,
Right, so just everything we're talking about when we talk about the cleanse are things you can do even if you've had your gallbladder removed. Because again, if you haven't addressed the reason, why was your gallbladder removed in the first place? All these stones were forming, right? Well, you haven't addressed that issue. Now, Steve, he's smart. He's into health. He's into prevention. He's taking care of this problem. Most people go to the doctor, have their gallbladder cut out, and they just continue their life as normal.
well, they don't know any different either.
Well, exactly. They don't know any different. Yeah, I'm not, it's not their fault, but that's just the way it is. They're not told anything by the doctors about diet or anything like that. But you're going to have a harder time digesting fat. You're going to have to take supplements to help you digest your food. You're going to have to take enzymes. It'd be beneficial to take an ox bile product oftentimes to help with digestion. So all those things are kind of listed in here.
Oh,
But it's going to be the same protocol, basically. And you can still do the flushes, too, because, again, you're still accumulating stones, especially if you haven't changed the way you eat. And now they're depositing in your bile ducts, in your pancreatic duct, eventually in your pancreas, and you're going to get pancreatitis. So, got to practice prevention. Any other questions?
So do colonics cleanse out the small intestine?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Okay.